Welcome back to Second Breakfast. This is a little bit of a follow-up to our Starfield video from a while back because it kind of got me rolling on revisiting some of these big Bethesda RPGs. And I went back, I was going to do Skyrim, but I thought I might get confused because we were really diving into The Witcher to finish that up and now into Game of Thrones. And Maggie has this thing where if she's doing one fantasy series and she reads or plays another one, she starts confusing them.
I can do it. They just have to be really distinct.
But I've heard that so much from you that now I'm worried I will do that.
Oh, sorry.
So it's put me off going back to Skyrim.
If you want to play Skyrim, you can play Skyrim. It'll be fine.
But I went back to Fallout, which is a game I have a long history with, Fallout 3 in particular, and this is sort of what came of that experience. So this is me talking about Fallout 3 and sort of my history with it. Maggie, of course, has never played Fallout, but you've seen me play it a bit, and I think you know the lay of the land? Lay of the land?
Lay of the land.
Ooh.
You got it. I swear, listener, we have content coming up about games that I have played. I feel like that's a theme, but no,
Sure.
There will be other things of things I have played, but this is more Cam talking about an experience he's had.
We've done multiple episodes that you lead about books that I haven't read, and
Well,
I'm
that's
still
true.
on the episode.
Well, that's true. I just meant I do play games, and those things things are coming.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting there.
Fallout 3. The headline here for me is how much I forgot about this game, because I remembered having played it vaguely, casually, but there's so much more history to dig into.
Okay.
I forgot how much of this game I played and completed. Going back to it now, I was hit with these constant, faint kind of punches of nostalgia and deja vu. As I moved through this world, which is like a wasteland version of Washington, D.C., I would remember things not right before they happen, which is usually, I think, how deja vu hits, but actually as it was happening.
Okay. And when did this game first come out?
2008.
Okay.
So, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I played it when it came out, so those memories are atrophied over decades now. But I also forgot how much I loved the game, because it has a sense of atmosphere. It has strength of character. The main quests are so engaging and provocative, and it's got this combat system. I don't know if you've seen this part when I was playing it. It's got this combat system called V.A.T.S.
Okay. Is that an acronym?
Yes, and I don't remember what it stands for.
Sorry.
something targeting system.
Okay, cool.
But basically, because the real-time combat of pointing a weapon and shooting is not great, they invented this thing called V.A.T.S, which is sort of a workaround to beef up the combat. But you click this button, you click one of the shoulder buttons when you're looking at an enemy, and time stops, and the body divides into these sections with little percentages on each limb, telling you how likely it is that if you shoot them from this point, you'll hit that limb.
Oh, cool.
So you can go just for the headshot and line up okay, I want to shoot at the head 3 times, and then you input that, and in slow-mo, you see that happen.
I feel like I would love that, because I get stressed out when there's time and you have to aim. Aiming is the worst for me. So if we get to pause and aim, that sounds fantastic.
That's the other thing, because Bethesda did not invent the Fallout IP. They inherited it. And before this, it wasn't a first-person shooter at all. It was more of a top-down normal RPG. So turning it into a shooter, V.A.T.S makes a shooter much more playable for people who aren't as adept at first or third-person combat. So it is a nice, it's almost an accessibility feature.
Okay, cool.
And it does make up for sort of the middling system there, but
yeah,
it's very memorable.
Do you like it?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I thought for a long time that I didn't, because it seemed like kind of a cop-out, because the mechanics weren't really there in the first place, but it has stayed with me. And going back to it, it was an absolute delight.
Oh, awesome.
So the question I wanted to play with in this episode is, why? Why did this happen? How did I forget this game? Which I apparently love so much. And I think the key there, this episode's more personal than most of them. The key is that the game came out in fall of 2008. That's the meatball, because this Fallout 3 is a post-apocalyptic adventure. It is a bleak, sprawling, philosophical role-playing game. And I believe it was my very first RPG. Because at this point, 2008, I was coming from a Halo, Gears of War background.
Yes.
Meaning big, fun, dumb shooters with really, really good mechanics.
Sure.
I mean, still, that's why I play Destiny. Nothing feels better than a Bungie shooter.
Yeah.
And Halo's where all that started. So I was coming from really good, great, like 7 or 8 hour campaigns in shooters, and then you move on to the next game. And the huge appeal for me when Fallout was coming out, because I remember all the promotional material, all of it. When this game was coming out, the appeal to me was scope. That this was going to be a massive open world first-person shooter. So like a Halo that never ends.
Sure. That's got to be amazing, especially because you were 13, 14.
Yeah, it's like, you know that thing you like? What if you had an endless supply of it?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I thought this was going to be. And I looked forward to it for months. I devoured all the promo content, which in 2008 meant like magazines.
Yes. Very exciting.
Which also means it's like very curated and not, as telling as gameplay footage is now.
Sure.
And I prefer it now, but there was a charm to like getting Game Informer and reading the articles with the big pictures.
That's very cool.
The hype was incredible. I pre-ordered the deluxe version of the game, which meant I had a little lunchbox.
That's so
because
cute.
The game's all this kind of like 50s retro futurism pastiche.
Okay.
There was like an old-timey lunchbox with the little character on it.
That's very cute.
It was great. I still keep things in it.
I love
it's
that.
at my dad's house still.
I was going to say, I've never seen it. Okay, that's why.
I know it's still there. I saw it last time we were there.
That's cute.
But right as this game comes out, and I think it's going to be, what if Halo was forever? The game comes out as my life explodes. So in the fall of 2008, this is around the time my mom is diagnosed with the most aggressive form of breast cancer. And we move across the country and surgery and chemo and radiation, all this shit. And I'm in a whole new place and new people. And I mean, my world exploded.
Yeah.
My whole world changed.
What a way to start high school.
Yeah, it was fun. As this game comes out, and I remember, I couldn't remember all the details of this time. And I think part of it is because it was a long time ago. But the other part is that it was fairly traumatic.
Yeah, of course.
But I remembered, even as I started like the first half hour of this game, I remembered the room that I originally played it in.
Oh, wow.
Because we were still moving in. So the house was kind of barren. It was before we decorated and made it our own. The house was a little barren, or at least this room was, off the kitchen. I remember the chair. I remember the TV. And that was like it was the ideal male living space. That was like the only thing in the room.
Yeah.
But I remember that experience of setting up to play this game that was supposed to be like the endless buffet as my life had completely gone to shit.
Yeah.
And Fallout 3, on top of everything else, was not what I expected.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a bad way.
Okay.
Instead of being big, fun, bright, exciting, kind of like vaguely dry and witty shooter that lasted forever, this was an ocean of earth tones and murky moral choices. It wasn't just that fun, cheeky retrofuturism aesthetic that I was looking for. It was inches of grit and grime layered on top of that. It was the post-apocalypse after all of the fun kind of marketing-friendly aesthetic that they were selling. And it had some of the clunkiest, floatiest, worst shooting mechanics ever produced.
Okay, yeah. When you're coming from something like Halo, it's going to be really different.
And I remember not liking it at all.
Yeah.
Like hating it, basically, when it came out. The gameplay experience of it. And we've talked about this before. I'm a gameplay first sort of guy.
Yeah.
And during our Starfield episode, which is really what kicked off this sort of wanting to revisit these type of games, I derided all of Bethesda combat. I said that Skyrim's the worst combat in any game. I haven't played that one again, so I don't know if I stand by that, but I want to revise somewhat my opinion about Fallout.
Okay.
Because it was a little while after the Starfield episode, and I saw there was a sale on Xbox. I think it was for Fallout Day. Don't totally know what that means.
Okay.
I imagine it's some lore reference. But anyway, Fallout 3 was on sale for $2.50.
Oh, perfect.
So I jumped at it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's 1/10 the price of a modern comic book.
Yeah, right.
So I jumped at it, and coming back to the game now was an experience I did not expect. It was transportive, depressing, and really just consuming on an emotional and sort of intellectual level. Because the main thing I'd forgotten in the intervening years is the wandering you do through Fallout 3. I mean, your character is literally, because you can call your character anything, they sort of have to hide the ball in RPGs where no one calls you by your name.
Yeah, right.
Because they can't.
The Wanderer, yeah.
Yeah, you're
right.
literally called the Lone Wanderer.
Okay, cool.
But that was the thing I forgot, was the wandering, the act of wandering, because so much of this game, it's a titanic map. It's huge, and you have like limited fast travel to some of the bigger places, but most of it is just, there's a thing way the fuck over there, I gotta walk forever.
Oh, wow.
Which means the way the game is designed is for a lot of interesting things to happen along the way.
Oh, very cool.
It's all about emergent gameplay. Like there was, I learned that phrase in Red Dead, when you'd be riding your horse somewhere and you'd see like a carriage and someone following it, shooting at it, and you'd get swept up in that story.
Yeah,
There'd be someone robbing a stagecoach and you'd get swept up in that story. And the game, I mean, that's the computer just like firing off these little curveballs at you while you're going to do something else. And that sort of emergent gameplay, that is the love, that's the miracle of games like Fallout 3, because you find like, oh God, what is that freaky looking building over there? It's a little off to the left, but whatever. And then you find like a 6-hour side quest.
I see.
So by the time you get to the main thing, you're ready for the main thing. And that's like sort of a quiet tutorial. They're giving you the whole way of
letting you kind of level up a bit until you get to the big thing.
But also just giving you that sense of discovery.
Yeah.
And it feels so organic. It's engaging you the whole time, instead of just giving you that sort of checklist of easy things to work through. So much of the game is picking your own path, finding the stories that interest you as you wander towards a main or a big side quest that is engaging in its own right. But it's the stuff along the way. It's stumbling on these things that feel like secrets, that really feel like achievements. Like, look what I did. This wasn't even on the map. This wasn't even in my quest log, and look what I found.
Sure.
But that process of engaging my curiosity and discovery, it is perfect. It is so rewarding that the like gameplay systems that aren't fantastic, it's fine. Like you don't care.
Okay.
The shooting mechanics being kind of subpar. The fact that if you switch to third person and watch your character walking, you're like aggressively floating over the ground.
Oh, weird.
You're not even close to making contact.
Oh, that's brutal.
But anyway, I'm playing in first person, so it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter, yeah.
Those like flaws become charming because this RPG element is so strong. But that wandering, the fact that you're not just kind of locked into a main quest like you would be in a Halo, where you can literally pick levels from a screen and that's how you interact with the world. Wandering through it like this, it felt so incredibly intimate and private. Because yes, I know all of this is scripted, but it was also about my process. This gameplay loop was it feels completely self-determined, because most of the gameplay isn't doing the fun operatic shooting galleries of a Halo. Most of it is picking up items, looking around for items, and little bitty flashes of combat that are scary or interesting. And it should be boring, because most of the time I was looking for more health packs or finding ammo. But it feels good.
Interesting.
It feels good to have like hundreds of stim packs or thousands of bullets for the gun you really like, and the weapons degrade over time.
So this kind of stuff you found boring at the time when you first played it.
I think so.
But then now, what is it, 15 years later?
Incredibly absorbing.
Interesting.
Because I really liked like the hunting rifle and the combat shotgun, which meant I used those a lot, which also meant those weapons degraded faster. So I had to keep picking up hunting rifles and combat shotguns to repair the ones I had. And the worse their like condition got, the less damage they did. So you do have to do the scavenging. But it's interesting because you go through this house like post-apocalypse, either it's all just blown to shit and everyone's dead, or some sort of like other scavengers have lived there. And the way you lay out these items can tell a story. If you have like skeletons next to a box of ammo, or if the skeleton is holding a gun and their head's a little to the side.
I mean, so you're like analyzing a crime scene, basically.
A lot of it is that.
Wow.
So there's a lot of that storytelling almost through the way you're setting the table.
Interesting.
But you do feel nervous.
Yeah.
Because these combat scenarios can come out of anywhere. Because you can have irradiated massive monsters just diving at you. So you need to be prepared for whatever's going to happen. So that scavenging feels very important. Even playing on an easy difficulty, which I did because I like to do that.
Yeah.
But having health packs, having ammo, it still felt important And you get that almost covetous feeling that you do during good RPGs where you feel like you're prepping.
Yeah, right.
And there's an implicit promise in that. Because if you prep to be ready for any interesting scenario and they don't give you any interesting or testing or challenging scenarios, you feel like you wasted your time. Right?
Yeah,
There's a setup punchline there.
Yeah.
And this one, I never felt like I wasted my time.
Interesting.
And this is where we pivot back to the post-apocalypse setting and the echoes of my life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is an obvious or clumsy metaphor when I say it out loud, but it fucking works in my head.
Yeah.
This game, Fallout 3, intense narrative focus on lost and dead parents. Mm-hmm. Character being thrown into an unknown and barren wasteland, which, to a dumb teenage me, was Texas.
Yeah, when you came from Rhode Island.
Right.
New England, yeah.
The game starts with you being born, and the tutorial flashes through major life events, birthday parties, events with the parent that eventually goes missing and you have to hunt for. It's these flashes of major inflection moments, turning points in your life. And I played this during the biggest one of those for me. You have rad roaches, like radiation-infused mega cockroaches. You have super mutants, which are like people who are all screwed up by all this. And these bald skeletal ghouls that are like loping through the sewers or the metro or the countryside.
Yeah.
You have all of these things, like we're calling them monsters, and the game explores that sort of branding.
Yeah.
But people who are really fucked up by this thing that just happened.
Yeah.
And that obviously resonated with me.
Yeah, people who, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the game also has a health system where you're eating food or using stim packs, which are like health packs, to improve your health. And you're constantly worried about your health. If, like, there was a guy on a bridge who fired a missile launcher at me, and instead of it just my health bar going down, a little diagram pops up of a character, and you see like different parts of the body that are suddenly like crippled or broken down, and you need to use a stim pack to heal that specific limb.
Oh, wow.
So you're constantly worried, do I have enough ammo? Do I have enough health packs? Do I need to go like sleep so my character feels better doing this? And it's not a burden. It's just more engaging.
Wow. Cool.
But it's having things like the bald and skeletal ghouls. It's going through a new barren wasteland. It's looking for a lost parent. It's constantly worrying about radiation exposure.
Yeah.
Walking through the wasteland. It really, really resonated with my life.
Yeah.
And going back to that now, like going back to that time and going back to this game, it was shocking.
Yeah.
Because when I played it in 2008, I think I didn't catch, like, oh, I
was wondering about
in
that.
my free time, but this is my other time too.
Yeah, I was like wondering if you had really made those connections at the time.
I think it just felt there was such a continuity that maybe I didn't notice how tailored it felt to me.
I see. You didn't consciously identify it, but it just...
It's like, of course there is. Of course there's radiation and you're nervous and paranoid and scared and in a place you don't know and there's like cancer metaphors everywhere. I don't think I caught it.
Yeah. Like
how coincidental and curated
right, because it just felt like the rest of your life was feeling, which is already hard to process when you're, I mean, at any stage in your life, but especially when you're still a kid.
And I'm wondering now if me, for a long time thinking that I just didn't like the game, was because I didn't like that time.
Of course, yeah. It's not like this was like a, because I think it would have been great if this was like a solace, an outlet, right? Like, oh, a fun thing that I liked to do when I was feeling really, really sad, when I was going through this really like tumultuous, terrible time. Instead, it was just more of the same. So of course you didn't like the game at the time.
It's grim, it's bleak, it's dark, it does not end in a happy, thrilling way.
Yeah.
But I think replaying Fallout 3 now, 15 years later, it made me relive a lot of those memories. And I think I sort of walked back into a headspace that I think I wanted to forget.
Well, of course you did. Yeah.
But I didn't remember that. So it feels like revelation now.
Yeah.
I mean, the lone wanderer white-knuckling through a broken, terrifying future, being paranoid, afraid, dabbling in philosophy. All of this shit became my life.
Yeah.
Through the philosophy degree and everything.
Right.
This was a time capsule. And even though it was rough, it was a pretty astonishing experience.
I was going to say, was it like, did it feel helpful? Did it feel like...
Now or then?
Either one. Did it feel like therapeutic to relive all this, to rethink it, to recontextualize it? Did it feel yeah, was it helpful, or was it just like, oh, I had to relive my childhood trauma?
Ultimately, I mean, it was tough at times, but I think ultimately it helped me understand at a distance what that person was going through. Me.
Yeah,
when I was
younger
14,
you. Yeah.
But like as a game, it's also fantastic. I don't want to brush over that. I mean, installing this game, which is as long as you want it to be. You can dump hundreds of hours into this with organic new content.
Sure.
And interesting side quests or emergent gameplay.
Wow.
And it's like a couple gigabytes. And Xbox is great about this. They've done these performance boosts to old games because Bethesda is now part of Xbox, where they dropped a huge performance update on the game. So it now runs at 60 frames a second.
Oh, wow.
So even though the graphics are 15 years old, the art direction has always been fantastic.
Okay.
And now it runs incredibly smooth.
Oh, cool.
So I've been playing more modern RPGs lately. Like I've played The Outer Worlds, which is from some of the old Fallout team who made, like, in 2019, a beautiful looking, sprawling, colorful RPG. It's not as good as Fallout 3.
Interesting.
Like, it's the bones that are so strong in this game, that lighting, day-night system. I mean, it can go from being this melancholy, thoughtful, post-apocalyptic exploration to a horror game in a second.
Yeah.
Mostly based on what time of day it is. Because you've either got these, like, mustard bleeding sunsets or sunrise, but if you go to certain places at night, the effect that it has on combat, exploration, and just the way enemies feel, and sometimes like where enemies are, it's profound.
Yeah, but that's freaky.
The weapon design is fascinating. That degradation system I described is really engaging, and the way V.A.T.S felt. At the time, it felt like a novelty, right? Or like maybe a Band-Aid over mediocre combat mechanics. But what hit me now is how, like, efficient it feels. And the coldness of it. Because you can stop time and immaculately, on a tiny little level, control everything you're doing in a combat situation. When you compare that to the jump scare of opening a door and there's a massive super mutant there with a Gatling gun, the real-time combat feels so messy.
Yeah.
But that feels more realistic.
Of course.
Because you don't get the fantasy of slowing down time and doing it all perfectly.
Of course not.
And the contrast between those two methods, I think it heightens both of them.
Wow.
It's power fantasy and the paranoia. Like, it's not a fantasy, but it's that nervous feeling that it cultivates within you.
So do you get a choice between those two styles, or is it like just dependent on the enemy or the weapon you're using? Or
V.A.T.S is like a meter that fills back up.
Oh,
so the more you use it, it like depletes, and then it's sort of a kind of a cooldown thing as it replenishes.
Okay. Do you have to like collect resources to help replenish it, or is it just over time?
It's just a time thing. There might be perks that can speed it up, but it's mostly a time thing. But
okay.
The cast of the game. I mean, you've got real voice acting here. I mean, not that people whose names haven't been in movies aren't real voice actors, but I mean, when you feel like Malcolm McDowell is in this game, or Ron Perlman, or Liam Neeson, they're all great.
Yeah.
But the point is, everyone else whose names you don't know from a Star Wars movie, they're all great too.
Wow.
So it's really powerful voice acting.
That's great.
And it's that sense of balance that I think I just clumsily tried to describe there, of feeling dread in one moment and power in another. Because there's literally a power armor suit you can put on, which is like what you see on the box art of that big kind of clunky, steampunky, big hunk of metal thing.
Yeah.
You feel so capable when you're in that. When you swap to the big, basically suit of armor. Yeah. And you're still using this like, shitty hunting rifle you've had for 65 hours. It balances that sense of challenge and accomplishment so well.
Wow.
I was so engaged in the game.
Yeah.
The characters felt like curveballs. There's a morality system. There's karma that kind of works in both directions here and changes how people interact with you, changes the ending you get. And then they'll throw these monkey wrench characters at you, like a super mutant who has been in prison learning to read and talks to you and begs you to help them and free them. And then if you do that, they'll help you later.
Wow.
Like there's knock-on effects of the morality system.
That's pretty cool.
That's been developed more in later games, but I think it is very potent in this early iteration.
Yeah.
The game just shines so bright.
Wow. So as good as the game is, do you feel like, regardless of that, it's still tied to this association you have?
Oh yeah, it always will be.
So like, do you feel like are you gonna play it some more, or do you feel like I worked through that, I like made those connections, I appreciate the game, but now I'm good?
Well, I have the expansions to play through.
Oh,
there are like 5 of those, and I'm excited to do that. And I don't think I ever got to those when the game came out, so hopefully those will be new experiences, but it was a very rich experience playing this again. It was tough, obviously.
Of course.
But also just powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what I look for. That's what the show is.
Yeah.
Talk through a powerful experience you had from a work of art. This one's more personal than most of those. You know, it's not just being gripped by a great story, but, and this is maybe where I want to throw a question to the audience, and to you, of course, Maggie, is have you ever had like a transportive time capsule experience revisiting a work of art? Or over the years, have you ever forgotten that you loved a work of art because of what it meant to you at the time?
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, you're right. This was a tough thing to do, but I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
It was draining, but it was, again, it was like a rich vein. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure I have, and I would have to. I mean, the nature of it is that I forgot. I would have to dig back in and think about it. But that's a really thought-provoking question, and it's interesting that it's not like, oh, I loved this game at this time during my horrible, experience, and I still love it. It was you hated it, and now you understand why, and now you really like it.
But like I played through most of the main quest.
So maybe you didn't hate it. You wanted to like it, and you didn't.
But I remembered hating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you hated that time of your life, so of course you hated the game. That's really interesting.
Because the Halo 3 came out in 2007. That was gravy. This was 2008. A very different kettle of fish.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. No, I would love to hear our listeners' experiences with this kind of thing down below in the YouTube comments, or send us an email, secondbreakfastpod, comment on the Patreon. You know the drill.
Yeah. Have you ever had one of these transportive time capsule experiences revisiting art? Or over the years, have you ever forgotten that you loved a work of art because of what it meant to you during your initial experience?
Yes. And just tell us about what it's like to revisit, because revisiting artworks, especially, from your childhood versus adulthood, that's always really interesting, just to get that different perspective and reflection. So,
like 2 years after this, there was another Fallout game that a different team developed, because that's a quick turnaround, called Fallout New Vegas.
Okay.
Which was built on the Fallout 3 assets. So it looks very similar, but it's like in the Mojave Desert and plays with a bunch of different ideas. I also got that one because it was also $2.50. I'm wondering if I play that, which I never played when it came out, will that feel the same?
Yeah.
Will that feel new? So I'm going to play that eventually, and if there's something fruitful, I'll bring it to the show.
Yeah,
but
maybe it'll remind you of another traumatic time in your life that you forgot.
But yeah, this was a doozy.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's really, really interesting. Thank you for talking to me about that. That's a fascinating realization for you to have had.
Yeah, it was beefy.
Wow. Also, just like great that that's still such a good game, 15 years later.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Starfield.
We did do a Starfield episode, by the way.
And Starfield is great and terrible.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, this was terrible because of the me stuff, but it was great on its own merit. Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. I'm wondering what Skyrim's going to feel like when I go back to that.
I know. Me too. Me too.
I'm in my RPG era.
Yeah, we are. We should do a Skyrim together. That'd be fun.
If you want more episodes like this, we have a new episode every Tuesday and Friday. And if you want even more episodes, you can support the show and get a whole back catalog of bonus episodes and a brand new exclusive bonus episode every single month over on Patreon. $2 a month for a year and a half of the back catalog and a new one every month. Sometimes we even do two. The month of November, we did 2 big buffet episodes covering 7 works of art each. And there were some games in those, actually. That's
true.
where I talked about Cyberpunk 2077 and Gotham Knights.
That's right.
A couple other things.
And if you're listening in the future, there'll be even a bigger back catalog of episodes. So
we are
good on you.
stockpiling game episodes right now.
Yeah,
it's fun to do, and you guys really seem to respond to them. So thank you, of course, for listening and humoring me on this more personal journey for the show. And we'll be back with a brand new episode on Friday. Have a lovely few days, and we'll see you then.
Bye.